So if you're wondering how you can take your spreadsheet data and output it within a web app and get a URL just like the one that we've been using in the project, this lesson is for you because I'm going to show you how to do that. So open up your web browser, and you will need to have a Google account for this because you're going to have to log into your Google account in order to get started and create your app script, because this is cloud-based and it is just like JavaScript. It's based on JavaScript 1.6 and it is cloud-based. So go to script.google.com and this will open up your start page to be able to start scripting. And there's also home/start. And this is going to create a script within your Google Drive. There's two ways to create scripts. So you can go into an existing spreadsheet and go to Tools, Script Editor. So this is going to create a bound script. And going over to here and doing a new project is going to do a standalone script. And the reason that I prefer standalone for this project is that it gives us more flexibility. If we want to, for instance, change spreadsheets, you can do it really quickly and easily, as you've got a standalone script and all you have to do is update the ID. So let me show you how to do that. So creating a new project, it's going to open up the web interface. So this is the app script editor. I make it a little bit bigger, and all of the code is sitting within code.js. So I'm going to minimize that screen. Give your project a title. So this can just be sheet data or whatever you want to call it. And this is how it's going to be represented within your Google, the applications that you've authorized to run within your Google account. So you have to be logged into Google as well. And also I'm going to compact the controls. So you've got all of your typical things like the file where you can create new files, and you can create brand new spreadsheets here as well. So if you want to create a new spreadsheet, you don't have to go outside of the script editor. And this is cloud-based, so you can share the content. There's typical things where you edit, view, and the run one is going to be one of the important ones because this allows you to run the various functions. And these are just common functions that you create, and then you can run the functions within the Google script interface. And then there's also publish. So this is where we're deploying it as a web app. So this is the important one. And under help, there's more documentation and getting started and a whole bunch of really cool things. So now that you've got your Google editor up and running, we're going to be using one of the default functions, and that's the do get. So you're going to need do get in order to run your web app. So this is the function that it's going to look for within your code in order to run the web app content. So let's select some variables, and we're going to have our spreadsheet. So we'll just call it SS. And there's a bunch of built-in methods with classes in each one of those. So the one that we're using is spreadsheet app. And then when you press the dot, you're going to get this drop-down menu of all the different functions and methods that are available for this. And what we want to do is open by ID. So it's expecting one parameter, which is an ID. Every single Google document will have its own unique ID, and the ID is available within the URL. So you can go over to the spreadsheet. So also go ahead, create a spreadsheet with the same columns where you've got the question, the answer, and then the various options that you want to have for the user. So you can do as many columns as you want here because we're going to be picking up this information from the spreadsheet. So create your spreadsheet first with some dummy content in there. Grab the ID of the spreadsheet that you just created and go back into your Google script and paste that ID. So it's a long number, so easier to copy and paste that. Next, we've selected the spreadsheet object within the SS variable. And the next thing that we want to do is select our sheet. And now that we've got the spreadsheet content within the sheet, and we know with Google spreadsheets we can have any number of sheets. So what we want to do is we want to simply select the first sheet. And you can also select sheets by names as well. So using the get sheets method, we're going to get an array of all of the sheets, and we want to simply select the first sheet or the first available sheet in order to get our data. So that's going to default to whatever sheet is first in order of the tabs. So we also want to get the content that's contained in there. So set up another variable, and using the sheet object that we just created, you then get data and data range, and then it's got another method where we get the values that are contained within there. So this is going to output all of the values, and instead of console log, it's got a function called logger log where you can log your information into the view logs there. So let's try to run this function. We'll run it on debug. And it's going to ask us to accept permissions because we're accessing a spreadsheet. So you can go through and accept the permissions. If you don't accept the permissions, your script won't run because the script has to run as you. So now when you go into view logs, you can see that you've got all of the content from the spreadsheet contained within that rows object. So that's exactly what we want because we want to take that rows content and we want to get all of the questions out of it. So under response object, and so we've got question, answer, options as the headers. So we don't want to pick up the headers for the questions. We want to start at row number 2 of data. So anything not including row number 1. So what we want to do, and if you're familiar with JavaScript, slice, we can slice starting at row number 1, and that's going to return back just the questions. Let's also set up a placeholder response array where when we loop through all of the rows of content, we can structure our array as needed. And the doGet function needs to return some content. So it uses a service called content service. So this is another built-in class. And we want to create text output. And it's expecting string content here. So you can, right now you can type in anything just to see how that works. And next, let's publish it as a web app. So they'll go into the Publish tab, deploy as a web app. And then this is where you can apply some project version information, execute the app. So generally keep the executing the app as you. If you set it to the user accessing the app, they're going to have to log in order to access it. And they might not have permissions to your spreadsheet. And then also who has access to the app. So this is also really important because you're accessing it from your web application with the API without any authentication. So basically you want anyone to be able to go to the URL and see the content that's being output from your spreadsheet. And then go to deploy. And you're going to see that you get a current web app URL. So this is the web app that I was using, the web app URL. And there's also a developer version where you can test it. So you can see the latest code being output there. And then when you commit the changes, you create the executable version. So right now, all we have is that hello being output, and that's coming from the apps. So once you've set up this, make sure that you can connect to the spreadsheet, make sure you can see the data from the spreadsheet, and then also make sure that you've got some content to output for the web app, and do a deploy web app, publish, and get your URL. And then coming up next, I'm going to show you how you can set it up and structure your data so it's in a JSON format being returned back and output within that URL. So that's still to come in the next lesson, part 2.